Thank you, Miriam, and good morning, everyone. My name is Lin, and I'm happy that you all are able to spare a bit of time, a bit of your mornings to really discuss about this issue of elder abuse, to better recognize it and also see some response mechanisms, whether it's informal or formal mechanisms to deal with it. So a bit of introduction about our organization. We are a charitable nonprofit provincial society, and as a society that has been around for over 30 years, our focus is and continues to be around supporting and advocating for older adults who may be vulnerable to abuse and neglect in this province. Some of the common types of abuse that we see on a frequent basis include physical, mental, and emotional harm, and a lot of times also financial exploitation. So a quick overview then of what it is we provide services on. They include our Seniors Abuse and Information line. Also, we have victim services, providing emotional support and safety planning. We also do have lawyers that give free legal advice to eligible older adults on a range of legal issues that I will talk about in the next little bit. And I'll also quickly address what it is we do around public education and outreach. So what is our Seniors Abuse and Information line? This is a safe place for older adults and those who care about them, so that includes all of us, to talk with somebody about situations where they feel they may be mistreated in some way. And this is a great first contact point, whether it is to find out more about our programs and services or to find out more about the resources that may be appropriate for your situation or the situation of somebody you're concerned about. Callers can remain anonymous, so we do not need to collect any name, phone number, location, or any other personally identifiable information. And the only exception here is when we offer a referral to a caller to speak with one of our lawyers, for example, and a caller accepts that referral, then we will be required to, or we will need to collect more personal details as per the funder requirements. We do also have TTY service for the deaf and hard of hearing population and language interpretation in over 200 languages by request. And all of this is made possible by the provincial government. A quick summary of our victim services program, which entails serving people who are over 50 years of age who may have experienced abuse, family, or sexual violence, and whether it is they want to get some assistance, they may feel that they need some resource or they need some ideas to plan for their safety, and also some emotional support. So this is what our victim service workers would be most happy to help with. Where also these victim service workers also have a lot of knowledge around the criminal justice system. So this is what we can also give some suggestions and resources on as well. What's of interest and of specific note here is that this emotional support is not just limited to people who are over age 50, but also those or anybody, regardless of their age, who may have witnessed abuse to older adults. And this is a program that's made also possible by the provincial government. So a quick overview then about our legal services. I mentioned before that the target clientele are people age 55 and over with select legal issues, and the kinds of service that they could receive could include legal information and referrals, summary advice, and sometimes even full representation in the courts. And this is made possible by the Law Foundation of British Columbia. So here is a quick overview then on the legal issues that we do deal with. They include things around housing, specifically where there may be landlord-tenant related disputes or problems relating to the care and the treatment in a care home. It may be that there's also debt-related issues that affect an older person. Access to government benefits is also something else that we tackle, both on a federal and a provincial level. Financial exploitation, as we'll delve into a bit more in the latter part of the presentation, may look like a misuse of a power of attorney, a joint bank account being withdrawn, or even a challenge of a will, even after the older adult in question may have passed away. Guardianship incapacity is one other issue that does really affect an older person, and we will talk about what that might look like in the next little part of the presentation. And sometimes we do encounter this issue of age-related discrimination cases as well. So as for public education and outreach, I would just like to invite you all to take a look at our website, as we do have a lot of great information and resource publications on elder abuse and other issues affecting older adults. And if you happen to be in the Lower Mainland or in any other area of the province, it's very likely that you can take part in our other workshops if you wish. And you can also stay tuned to our website as to when and where they will be taking place. So without further ado, I want to get into the learning goals of this presentation then. So first of all, we want to understand better of what abuse of older adults really means. While it may sound very simple, one of the most effective preventative measures of ensuring the safety of an older adult is to facilitate and for them to maintain social connections with other people. And lastly, we will talk about what kind of strategies there are to deal with elder abuse. So just to clarify, while the organization I represent does have legal staff, I myself am not a lawyer or legally trained, so I will not be able to give legal advice, but I am happy to provide any information or resources around your options and rights pertaining to this issue. So firstly, we want to define and give some context to what mistreatment of older adults, otherwise known as elder abuse, may be. So this primarily is understood as an action of harming a person. And considering that tends to be a lot more visible, it's not surprising that that the media or a lot more attention can get placed on this aspect. But this second bullet of neglect is also a part of elder abuse. And what this entails is not providing the care or assistance to a dependent person. And this can be both in a family setting, so in a private family home, but it can also be in a more institutional care home setting, where it may be that a nurse or an orderly or a care aide is rough handling an older person from going to the washroom, going to have a meal, etc. So what might be then the risk factors of elder abuse? Well, I want to talk about two, and the first of which is mental capacity. Mental capacity, I just want to switch to the next slide briefly, entails the ability to make decisions and also the ability to understand the consequences of those decisions. So I'll give an example here. A lot of times we may get calls from concerned family that, well, my mom has gone to the bank to take out $10,000 recently, and I think there might be a problem. She might not be with it. What can I do? So we're always glad to hear from such concerned callers, because it provides a chance for us to have a dialogue with that caller and also encourage the caller to have a conversation with the older adult in question. How this draws back or connects back to mental capacity is that all of us, as per the laws in this province, are all presumed to be mentally capable. Mentally capable so long as we are over 19 years of age in this in our lives. And really, it's only that medical professionals, usually 2 or 3 doctors, and lawyers or the judge in a court system that can decide if we are or if we aren't mentally capable. The one big myth that surrounds mental capacity here is that, sort of like when you turn on or turn off a light switch. Some people may think that in the instance when you turn on the light, you have capacity, but in the instant when you turn off it, you lose that mental capacity to make decisions and understand those consequences. But we know that regardless of our age and background, that there can be a lot of different reasons, a lot of different factors that can influence or lead mental capacity to vary. And such factors may include health issues, may include stress, anxiety, may include substance use issues, and other personal factors that may make it difficult to make and comprehend decisions at certain periods of our lives. So when we turn back and look at how it could present to be a risk factor, we have to consider that if, say, an older person was asked by his or her family member to borrow some money from them, or even worse, to sign a legal document at a time of day when they may not be as alert or as mentally capable as other periods of the day, then that could make them a bit more vulnerable to being financially abused. It certainly goes without saying that people also in institutions such as hospitals or care facilities, care homes, they may also be caught in such a predicament where maybe it is they are being asked to, if they want to move to another to do a certain social activity when they don't really want to, because they just want to rest for the day. And they may then, whether it is the caregiver that looks after them has their best interest, they may, be subject to some kind of mistreatment as well. So what I'm referring to with the second bullet here around ageism is that ageist beliefs or actions by other people on the societal level can also make one to be vulnerable to abuse. Too often, I hear from other workshop participants that when they, for example, when they as an older person, they are accompanied to see a doctor or to go to the bank to see somebody along with a younger family member, what happens is that while the conversation should be around the health, the well-being, or the bank account of the older adult in question, the bank teller or the doctor may presume that, well, it's the younger person that really can comprehend and make decisions a lot faster than an older adult would. And what's more, the younger person, they should, with goodwill, convey what they have discussed in the doctor's appointment or at the bank to them afterwards. So why spend the time when already time is really quite finite and limited? So these are, some of the existing risk factors that exist, that are present really both on an individual level and also on a societal level. What I want to talk about as to social isolation too is that it can be such a sneaky kind of issue that may not present as much at first, but then really affect the well-being of an older adult. So if we take a look at this lady here that's seated on a chair, we might draw to the conclusion, our first impressions may lead us to think that yes, she is lonely, she's isolated. But hang on here. If it is we just observe, then maybe we see a problem. But I would invite that we take a step back and maybe engage with her in a conversation, give her a friendly phone call, visit her as a neighbor, visit her as a friend to see how she really is doing. Because maybe the circumstances are that she just came back home from a long trip abroad, and she's just taking the day to rest and recharge. And otherwise, she's after this little while of being by herself, she can then resume to being her outgoing and social self. So really, social isolation that's to say, it's going to be everybody's level of desired social contact is going to be quite different. Some people, they may prefer to be by themselves, and they may prefer that they really just connect with their family or some friends. But some people may feel that to make their life to be a worthwhile and an interesting one, they enjoy getting out to the community, going out to the local community center, the church or other religious place, if they have a certain religious belief, to really make social contact. And while I mentioned that, I also have to mention that social isolation for some people can be quite difficult, or can be quite a almost inevitable kind of situation, because maybe it is they live in a very small remote community, and there's not any local bus service, or they live in a particularly hilly or difficult to reach part of the area. So really, unless their family come and visit or take them out to go outdoors, it could be difficult for them to go out and socialize. As well, we know that for some older adults who may be in their 80s or 90s, they may feel that, well, I perhaps don't have much left in my life, so what's the point of trying to make friends with new people when I'll lose them, or they won't really want to associate with me due to my old age or other reasons. So this is also a key issue that we hear about and that I want to address. So what we see in relation to elder abuse is that when there is a chance, when there is at least one person that cares about an older person, whether it's some family member, friend, a neighbor, community organization, it's more likely for abuse to get noticed. And it's more likely that there is already that trust or that rapport built with that older person, so that if they should want to reach out for help, then they have a trusted source that they can reach out to. And perhaps ultimately it could stop abuse from getting worse, or even from happening altogether. So what then does the law in Canada state about elder abuse? Well, right now, so far as we understand, there's no crime called elder abuse or neglect. As troubling as that sounds, some abuse is illegal because, say that the alleged abuser has committed such acts such as theft, fraud, assault, misuse of powers of attorney, just to name a few. Well, these are already crimes that are very clearly stated under the Criminal Code of Canada. What is a bit tricky and why I state that some abuse is not a crime is that to be reported to the police and to go through proceedings, it's necessary to have evidence. And what's tricky here is that when it involves emotional or psychological harm, it can be hard to get that evidence. And what's more, the police may feel that, well, this is a family matter. This has nothing to do with us. And I'll give another example here where emotional or psychological harm may be inflicted. An example may be that an older person, they live with or live close by to their adult children and their grandchildren. And one day, maybe one of the adult children may be in a financial bind and need money, is in great need of money because they have lost their job or they have their car has broken down and they don't have a rainy day fund. So what can happen is that the situation may get to such intensity, such as the adult child says to their older parent that if you don't lend me money, I won't let you see your grandchildren anymore. So knowing that, especially for a lot of older people, they want to really bond with and maintain relationships with their close family, especially their grandchildren. This is such a kind of big kind of a detriment to their overall well-being and their sense of worth, that they feel like they have to do something when they don't feel that they when they feel that they don't have any other option. They just have to do it in order to try to maintain this relationship. So that's what I mean by some abuse may not be or is not a crime. What then might be some other types of elder abuse? Well, we've talked about neglect, physical, psychological, financial forms of elder abuse. But I also want to kind of draw attention that it can also involve chemical medications, can involve spiritual elder abuse, forced confinement, and at times sexual forms of elder abuse as well. And in the video that we will see in the next little bit, I hope that that will illustrate a lot more of these different types, and we can come back to talking about what the signs might be and how we are to recognize it. What might be then the kind of alleged abusers that are involved? Well, a great majority of known elder abuse cases has found that it tends to be people on the left-hand column here. So they are people already in a close relationship with the older person, such as a family member, a partner, a child, grandchild, neighbor, friend, caregiver. But it could also be people that are not as well known to the older adult, such as building managers, doctors, lawyers, substitute decision makers, just to name a few. The common threads to realize between these two kinds of people is that they oftentimes have a lot of power, trust, and authority over the older person. think of it in a way that whatever they say or do, they may feel and justify to the older person that this is for the best, for your best, when they're not revealing their ulterior motives. And where might it happen? So it could happen at home, in a more institutional setting, such as a care facility or care home or a hospital. And if we think about it even broader, it could be anywhere else in the community as well. Consider, we just went through the personal income tax filing season, and I'm sure a lot of you would have or may have heard about or received calls from people claiming to be Canada Revenue Agency or even BC Hydro. Now, for those that received it, it might not be it might not be perceived as abuse per se, but if we consider that these people are trying to rip us off, rip us financially, take advantage financially, then that could certainly fall into the category of elder abuse as well. So at this point, I want to just pause for any kind of questions that any of you may have, and you can either type in your response, or I think you can also raise your hand on the through the purple bar, and I'm happy to respond. And if not, we will be showing a video, and that will illustrate what we've talked about so far. So I see that there are some people typing away, so I'll give you a moment, and you can ask whatever questions you may have. So somebody has brought up the question of how do you identify spiritual abuse? Well, this is one that I would say might be less visible than the other types, such as physical and financial abuse that we talked about briefly. And an example may be an older person who may like to frequent their local church may be absent for quite some period of time because maybe they have some health issues and are unable to leave their own house or are a bit homebound otherwise, in other words, or perhaps it could be the situation that the family members that they are living with are preventing them from getting out of the house to go to the church. And furthermore, in a family setting, such family members may even prevent older adults from praying or doing other religious practices because they just don't like it. So I have another question that is around the issue. What about the issue of assisted suicide being presented to a PD patient? I'm not sure. So I guess the PD stands for Parkinson's disease patient. Yes, it's quite a complex and evolving issue right now, as the legislation for assisted suicide is just going through the federal government. So what I have to say more at this time is not just stay tuned to what the federal legislation might look like, but to also consider, that there are legal documents that one can prepare to have a trusted person represent and speak for oneself about such healthcare and personal care decisions if need be. Okay. So I do understand that this person has also mentioned that Parkinson's disease is not typically a fatal disorder. Thank you for adding that. So the legal documents that I would invite you and invite all participants to consider may be such things as advanced healthcare directives or representation agreements, which do allow us as individuals to choose trusted individuals to speak for us as to our healthcare and personal care wishes. All right, any other questions? Well, if not, let's go ahead and watch the video, and we will, come back and discuss, what it is we have gathered from the video and related to what we've learned so far.
This is a story about Ellen Andrews and her daughter Margaret. Ellen is a widow who fell while out shopping. She broke her hip and the wrist on her right hand and badly wrenched her shoulder. When Ellen was released from the hospital, she was unable to go back to her own home and so has been taken several hundred kilometers from her hometown to live with her daughter Margaret and Margaret's husband Jim. No one is very happy about the situation.
Margaret, before you go, would you please get me my things?
Mother, when will you stop going on about your things? You're making me late for work.
Oh, well, I know you're busy, but, I must have a bath or a good wash. I can't go on like this, and I need my clothes.
I'm doing my best, Mom. No, it's not easy looking after you on top of keeping Jim happy.
Well, you shouldn't have to do it much longer. I managed very well on my own after your dad died, and there's absolutely no reason why I can't look after myself. If I had my purse and my checkbook, I could arrange to see a doctor and get a walker.
And you can't go by yourself, so you're just going to have to wait until Jim and I have time to take you. You know we're very busy, and now you're making more work for us. Just try to be a little patient. Jim and I don't always have time to be fussing over you.
Well, I didn't ask to be here. It was all your idea to sell my house and everything I owned. I want to be looking after myself, not here with you.
Right. Like the hospital was going to let you go back to your house when you can't do anything for yourself. Where else could you go? I thought about building a ramp to the house, Mum. But the hill was just too steep. We couldn't let it sit empty. It was better to sell it. Here's your sandwich.
Oh, no. Not peanut butter again.
Well, I don't do cucumber sandwiches and cream teas. It's what you used to give me. If it was good enough for me, it should be good enough for you. Look, I might be home late tonight. Jim and I have some business to do. So here are a few crackers to tide you over, and here's the phone. Don't be making any long-distance calls. Jim won't put up with that. It's just for emergencies. Call 911. Mom? Do you have anything to read? Can you reach the remote for the TV?
Margaret, is there any mail for me? I never heard from any of my friends. Sam, can you believe what's happened to me? How could I end up like this? I'm so miserable. Oh, Sam, how you're all wet too. You look as if you've been crying. Well, you would cry if you knew what Margaret has done. Of course, there's Jim in it too. I know you never liked him wanting to know all our business. You know, I never knew the house was sold until I was ready to leave the hospital. How could she do that to me? And get rid of everything, all the things that we worked hard for and treasured. It just breaks my heart. I don't know where my pension money is. I keep asking, and Margaret says I'm complaining, and if I keep it up, I'll be put in an institution. I know Jim doesn't like my being here. He never talks to me anyway. And when he's home, I have to stay in the bedroom. I can't go to an institution. I wouldn't be able to do anything for myself. You know, people just shrivel up and die in those places. Oh, my dear Sam, whatever am I gonna do? Oh. Yeah. Hello?
Hello, may I speak with Margaret Betts, please?
Oh, Margaret isn't home right now. Would you like to leave a message? This is her mother.
Hello, Miss Andrews. I am so pleased that now you are able to take calls. And, I forget myself. This is Kareem Ahmed from the bank.
Who is it?
Kareem Ahmed from the bank. I'm calling about your account.
Well, now, you know, you've got my pension checks. They come in every month, and I haven't had any money since I went into hospital.
Mrs. Andrews.
But I need that money to go home, so you'll have to send me some.
Mrs. Andrews, I'm sure that Mrs. Betts will provide you with the money if you ask her for. But the reason I'm calling indeed is about your savings account. Since there is no funds left in this account.
Well, what happened to my pension checks then?
Well, I think your pension checks are still going in your checking account. But the account that I'm talking about is your savings account.
Savings account? What are you talking about? I never had a savings account.
Mrs. Betts opened a savings account in your name and deposited a check made out in your name in the amount of $300,000. This was the money from the sale of your house.
$300,000? I didn't know that.
Now that there are no funds in this account, I'm calling to see if you and Mrs. Betts want me to close this account.
Wait a minute.
When do you think your daughter will be home?
No funds left? What do you mean? What happened to the $300,000? That's my money.
3 days ago, Mrs. Betts withdrew the whole amount by certified check made out to a real estate company on Vancouver Island.
What on earth did she do that for? How could she do that?
But Mrs. Andrews, do you remember that you gave a power of attorney to Mrs. Betts to manage your affairs just after your husband died? Have you been looking at the bank statements? We have been mailing them to your daughter's address.
I'm telling you, if I had my pension checks, I'd be on the next bus home.
Well, you're going to feel a lot better about things after moving to your new house. Mrs. Betts told me that this is right on the golf course.
What new house? I don't know anything about a new house. What are you talking about?
Mrs. Andrews, you should talk to your daughter. Please tell her I called. Oh my goodness, she sounds very confused.
I've got to sort this lot out. I don't know what's going on. I just can't believe it.
I was halfway to work when I realized I'd forgotten my wallet.
Oh,
Who were you talking to?
there was a man from the bank, and he told me that my house sold for $300,000, and you've taken that money out of my account. And I want it back. That's my money.
I'm looking after everything. It's not as if you understand anything about managing money or business matters. Anyway, Dad worked for it. It was his money, not yours.
Margaret, that was our money. And when your dad died, it was my money.
Mom, you've been out of it. You can't even sign anything with that broken wrist.
Oh, somehow you expect me to open packets of crackers for my supper?
Look, I moved the money to hide it. I've acted in your best interest. You don't realize how you could lose your guaranteed income supplement and have to pay income tax, and probably a lot more for your care and medical supplies. That'd be really stupid, wouldn't it, to let the government grab a big chunk of what Daddy worked so hard for?
You didn't tell me that you got $300,000 for my house, and that's my money, and I want it back in my account.
Mom, I'm looking after everything, and that costs money. Jim is retiring soon, and we want to move to Victoria. So we've just borrowed the money until we get the new house built. When it's ready, we'll sell this place and move. And then if you want the money back in your account, you can have it. And you can let the government take the whole thing if that's what you want.
And while we're on the subject, what happened to all the money from selling the furniture in the garage sale? What happened to that?
That money went to pay for the lawyer's fees, for transferring the property and other expenses. What did you expect me to do? The hospital said you couldn't go home again. I'm doing the best I can. I don't know how you can complain. It's not like you know how to manage anything. Jim knows how to look after these things.
Margaret, give me my money back. I want to go home.
Mother, try to understand. The house has been sold. You can't go home.
Well, I can find another place to live. I don't want to stay here and be treated like this. You and Jim will want all my money. You want to kill me. Well, I'm telling you, if I'm going to die, I'm going to die in my own home.
Will you just listen? It's not your money. Dad always said he was saving that money for me. It's my money.
Yeah? Well, I call that stealing.
I'm giving you a home and looking after you. And you call me a thief? You keep talking about going home. I'll make sure you go to a home and never come out again.
All right, so now that we've finished watching the video, there are a couple of things that I want to draw to our attention, and that is things around social isolation and also things around elder abuse. But these are all just starting questions that we can think about, and if there's any other kind of concerns, comments, or thoughts that any of you have, please feel free to type it in. So first of all, this issue of social isolation. How do you find that Ellen, who's the older lady that you see in the video, is socially isolated? And some other questions to some other concerns that we saw around social isolation is that, how do you find that, what did you think about her interaction with the bank over the telephone? how do you find Ellen's interaction to be like with her daughter as well? So there's a note comment around Ellen is allowed to call friends or family or receive mail. Another comment, she was moved from her home and surroundings miles away. Indeed. So she's outside of her familiar surroundings and furthermore has been very much disconnected from anybody else around her in her that may be nearby. So there's another comment too, that there's a very adversarial interaction between daughter. Can we elaborate a little bit more as to, what made you find it to be quite an adversarial interaction? Also, don't forget, what were your thoughts around the interaction she had with the bank, Ellen had with the bank? Okay, so thank you. So there's another comment around the adversarial interaction, and that is the daughter treats Ellen as a burden and isn't respecting her. Okay. So particularly around, how we found out her house being sold, that the daughter is evidently did not respect Ellen's wishes and consult with her beforehand as to whether or not she wanted to sell the house. It just got sold without her knowing. Okay, and there's another comment around the bank manager. So the bank manager, if he suspected financial abuse of Ellen, could have advised her of resources to advocate for her. Indeed, that would be a very very proactive and supportive role that the bank manager could have taken. But we know in our experience that some banks, some financial institutions, they may feel bound by their privacy and confidentiality policies and not do much, if at all. So any other thoughts around social isolation, the connection Ellen has with her daughter, the interaction she has with the bank? So there's another comment around the bank's involvement, and that is small town banks are more personable and call if something unusual happens. Sure, that is, to my understanding, what some smaller banks or some banks in smaller communities and even credit unions may do. Another comment is around Ellen isn't able to get a walker without her daughter's assistance. Indeed. So there's no assistive devices that can help Ellen get out of her situation. So she is really quite confined at home and just on the chair. So there's another comment that's well put, and that is the daughter and the bank manager have a position of power over Ellen. Yes, so they are rather imposing their beliefs on what they think is best on Ellen and really not allowing her any chance to speak up for herself. Yes, the issue around nutrition as to, the quality or the nutrition, the level of nutrition with the sandwich and the crackers that she's left. Plus, she's not being given anything to drink. So, and pretty much the only phone call that she's allowed to make outside is 911. But it remains to question that if would she call 911 if she had the chance. And some of you may agree, some of you may disagree, which is perfectly reasonable, because we realize that the situation Ellen is dealing with is primarily with her daughter, and perhaps with a lot of older people, they want to maintain relationships, even though it may be harmful to them, with their adult children. And they don't want to get the police involved, never mind see their children go to jail. Also, there's another comment around the threat of being institutionalized. Indeed. So better stay quiet and obedient almost, and not complain that you should do more. You should do more for me, keep me company, etc. And there's another comment around they could hire somebody to watch their mom and claim it on their taxes for a deduction. Indeed, so it may be that the daughter, as a caregiver, does not realize what her options are, does not realize that there are respite options that she could connect her mom with, such as an adult daycare center. So when we consider, the kinds of elder abuse that are shown, what would you say are some signs of, abuse, or some types of abuse that you have seen? Financial abuse, yes. So primarily around the misuse of power of attorney, which has allowed, sort of enabled the daughter to sell the house from under Ellen. So things around neglect. I'm glad that a lot of you have caught it as well, which can include not feeding her, leaving her alone and isolated all day. Other thoughts? There was most evidently physical abuse that we saw towards the end. Yes. And what about emotional or psychological harm? What would you say might be some examples of that? Lack of personal care in allowing her mom to bathe. So no assistance, no chance for her to get out of her nightgown and change into day clothes. Okay, so I see that a lot of you are typing away, so just give you a moment or two. Being forced to stay in the bedroom when Jim is at home. Indeed. So when the son-in-law comes back home, because the son-in-law seems to not like her around either, she's even further confined in a smaller space. Now, there's a question. Once a person has given a power of attorney, is it possible to reverse that? Yes, so long as the lawyer or notary assesses and determines that you are mentally capable, then you should be able to request in writing that your power of attorney be revoked or canceled. And it does also depend on the type of power of attorney that you have. In the case of British Columbia, there are 4 different types, and 2 types, such as specifically enduring and springing powers of attorney, remain to be as active and effective documents even after one may be deemed to be mentally incapable by doctors and by the courts. Okay. So I am going to advance a couple of slides because I'm very conscious of the time and of your time as well. Lack of access to medical care certainly is another aspect, and emotional abuse may entail saying that her mom gave her peanut butter sandwiches and it was good enough for her as a child, so it's good enough for Ellen now. So acting like mom is ungrateful and demanding for asking for food. So it's sort of like retribution. This is how you treated me as a child, so what's wrong about doing, treating you this way now that our roles have reversed? So some thoughts around, staying socially connected to consider, maybe, examining your life, first of all, as to what do you do that connects you with others. And, that can serve as a good start in helping us really suggest to other people, other older people that we care about, as to ways to stay socially connected. And what I mean by that is that some people, they may just really prefer one-to-one interactions and with those that they are close to, that they trust, and that may be, their form of meaningful social contact. But other people, for other people, they may need some assistance to get out to see their friends at the local Legion or the local senior center or the shopping center even. And to have a conversation to really unveil or understand, what kinds of social connections are meaningful is quite key. So what can we do then about elder abuse? In closing, that I want to say is that it's so important to, first of all, check in with the older adult. Because a lot of times it may be that the situation presents as a problem, but the older adult may or may not want to do something about it. And they do have the option to decide for themselves. As we mentioned before, that we all are presumed to be mentally capable and able to decide for ourselves. Certainly, if there is a life or death or emergency situation, it may very well be that 911 has to be called, but otherwise, that may not be what the older person may prefer to do. As well, in British Columbia, there are mandated authorities known as designated agencies that are required to look into and respond to cases of adult abuse or neglect. And these are all the health authorities in this province that have designated staff members that will speak with the older adult and figure out if some supports, if some resources have to be built in to their care plan or to their support system so that they can stay safe. Another suggestion is if the older person lives in assisted living or other congregate housing, to inform the director of care or building manager, as we find that oftentimes these settings, they have policies and procedures to ensure the safety of the older adult in question. So there's a point around assisted living that somebody has shared here, which is, I work in assisted living and do activities and encourage the tenants to join. Some are happy staying in their suites but complain of being lonely. We more gentle, encouragingly, I can get them to come down for different things and they enjoy it. Thanks for sharing that, because everybody's likes and preferences for socialization can be different. And so there may be some things that some people prefer to do that they find is worthwhile, maybe by themselves or with other people, and for other people that may be that may look different as well. So what's more, the public guardian and trustee do get involved when there are financial abuse cases, primarily where the adult in question is determined to be mentally incapable. When there are any criminal activities, the police are always interested in receiving reports. And I want to also draw attention that our Seniors Abuse and Information line, our staff are always happy to accept calls, to take calls and provide very specific support and resources depending on, what kind of circumstances are presented to them. So very quickly, designated agencies include the regional health authorities, the 5 health authorities in this province, as well as Community Living BC. Public guardian and trustee, they investigate allegations of financial abuse and also serve as the decision maker for mentally incapable adults. They also have other resources for substitute decision makers. And our Seniors Abuse and Information line, which is a safe place for older adults and those who care about them to talk with somebody about situations where they feel they may be being abused or mistreated, or to receive more information about elder abuse prevention. And just a quick note to draw your attention that we do have a real staff person answering the telephone every day, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., except for holidays. And if you require TTY or language interpretation assistance, that's available Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. So that brings the presentation to a close, but I am happy to stick around for any further questions. And otherwise, thank you very much for your time and your participation. And I hope today has been informative. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lynn. I think that was really informative. And even though you kind of sailed through some of the last little bit, I think it was worthwhile to sticking out and to really kind of going through all of these slides. If you do want information about some of what Lynn has said, please just email me or the Society, or call in the Society, and we can provide you with that information. If you do have any questions, Lynn said that she'd be happy to stick around for a few more minutes. But if you do not, thank you so much for participating and for being here with us on such an important topic. And I hope that you do go and share this information with other people with Parkinson's, or just people in your family and the social circles that may benefit from this information, because it's really important to be advocates and to be informed and to know what is out there for older adults, especially those that we really care about. So thank you again, Lynn.
Thank you.